Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the Ingham County Bar Association, I welcome you to our last installment of the Keeping Bench and Bar Together series. We have a very special night here with Judge Wanda Stokes from the Ingham County Circuit Court. Good evening, Judge Stokes.
Good evening, Stephen. It's good to see you and all these familiar faces. I don't know. I saw my former boss there, so I'm not sure. Gary,
there he is.
Are you critiquing my progress? It's good to see you. Good, all of you.
Yeah, so I just have a few introductory comments, and obviously we want to hear from Judge Stokes, not from me. Just wanted to touch on that this is our last installment of this series. We thank everyone who's attended them. I especially thank the judges who made it all possible. We know that being back together in person and mingling and seeing each other is what we really want to do, but hopefully this did something to keep us connected. Want to thank members of the board, the Ingham County Bar Association board, Madeline Lowry, Chris Wickman, Madeline's team, everybody else who helped with the logistics of the events. So thank you. A point of reflection, when we started doing the events, we felt it was like a dire need to do it for our members. And we were thinking about the timeline, and I remember Judge Stokes being the one that, for various scheduling reasons, fell into this mid-June date. And we were hoping, well, maybe that'll be the time when we're transitioning. And clearly, I think that's where we're headed, and that's a good thing. Another point of reflection is Judge Stokes took the bench in, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sorry, the years are blending together. 2019, is that correct? 18. Sorry, I'm sorry. Correct.
Yeah.
18, and then we were trying in 2019. That's to have an event for Judge Stokes as a way to introduce her to the Bar Association, to the legal community at large, and we were doing that, trying to also have it be in line with technological upgrades in her Mason County courtroom, and we're going to have this nice evening with Judge Stokes event. And we were going there, and there were some other delays, and then of course the pandemic happened, and now her courtroom is being retrofitted in a completely different, unanticipated way. But here we are, nonetheless. Finally, an evening with Judge Stokes, and I just kind of want to get it underway. And Judge, feel free to open with any introductory remarks. I want the people to kind of learn about you tonight and your background, everything from where you grew up to aspects of your education, and you've had a very diverse range of experiences that I think really make you an informed, insightful judge. So why don't you just take it away and say hello to everybody, and we'll kind of naturally get that information out here tonight.
Thank you, Stephen, and thank you all. This is I'm glad it's only an hour, because it will limit my comments and make me be a lot more I'll be a lot more succinct than I can be sometimes, especially when I start talking about me and my growing up, and just all the things that I really love about being in the legal community, and especially now on the bench. But thank you all for your interest. I was telling Stephen earlier, I don't think I'm that interesting, but I guess if others want to hear about some of the things that I've done and what I think has brought me here, I'm happy to share. As Steve indicated, I do have a really varied, and in some ways it's a conflicting career that brought me here. First, I'll tell you, I grew up in the Thumb area, which he didn't know. And it's in a small rural county. There were 86, Thumb. And I had 86 folks in my graduating class. And just, it was just a small community. It's a village, and it still is. I was just there this morning. My mom's 91, and I'm assisting with caregiving duties these days. So our caregiver texted me this morning and said that she had guests at her home and she couldn't make it. So we had to do something to turn some things around quickly this morning. But anyway, I'm one of 10 siblings. I'm right in the middle. And I think that most people says a lot about me and my whole concept of sharing and and just trying to get people to come to consensus on things, because being in the middle, you really are the one that has to keep the peace many times. I mean, my dad would always look to me as, Wanda, go figure it out, go help them and get them to understand what's going on. So, because I knew both generations. I knew the younger ones and I knew the older ones. So that really worked for me. After graduating from high school, I went to MSU, go Green. And for all of you maize and blue folks, I have relatives who have graduated from that other school as well. So I still think of it fondly. I always knew I wanted to be an attorney. I never wanted to be anything else. And I knew at some point my goals were to argue in front of the US Supreme Court and to be a judge on the bench. I never had the opportunity to actually argue before the Supreme Court, but I attended others' arguments. So it wasn't mine, but I had a chance to observe. And that was a real great experience, just to be there and to observe an argument firsthand. So I feel very fortunate there. And of course, now I'm sitting on the bench, and I came in a way that I never really imagined. I thought I'd go through. I actually ran for office, and I don't know, is Jim Jamo here? Because he's the one that beat me. And I love him as a colleague on the bench. We are, I consider us real good friends. But in any event, I thought that would be the route that I would take. And it just didn't happen that way. I started, my first job was at Ford Motor Company, and then I left there because I got married. And I came to Lansing. I worked at Auto Owners Insurance Company. And when I left there, I was a director. I was a manager when I left Ford. And actually, I'm dating myself now, but I was there at the time of Pinto. And and left there, went to Auto Owners. That's a great company. And another place that I actually thought I would retire from, but that didn't happen. But loved the folks there. Ted Buddha was the general counsel when I was there, and he was a wonderful mentor. And Herm Ahrens was a CEO, and he was just the nicest man, and actually invited my husband and I to his home. And just great people, family people. And that's one of the things I really love about that company. Left there, I was a director, and I again, probably dating myself, but I'll tell you that when I left, I told Mr. Ahrens, I went to his office and I told him I was leaving. And I said, you know what? If I was 50 years old, this would be the greatest job, but I want to go back to litigation. And so I actually left there, and I went to a law firm, and I worked with Jeff Iger. And I know people hear that and they don't equate that with being appointed by Mr. Snyder to the bench, or to working with Mike Cox and some other more conservative individuals that I've worked with. But you know what? They were all just great people. And I learned something from every opportunity, because that's exactly what they were. They were not by design. I think that my career developed as a doors open for opportunity. I remember when Mike Cox first came to the AG's office, and he asked me if I hadn't signed up for a meeting with Mike Cox yet. And I said, no, I don't want to meet him. But I did, and he talked me into doing some things to help him in that administration. I worked with Gary. I've worked with a number of great people at the AG's office, and just again, so much of what I know about a number of things, whether it's insurance coverage, whether it's products liability, just general, medical malpractice. That's Jeff's forte, and it was at the time that I was there too. And there's a full service firm actually, but I was there during Jenny Jones. I was also telling Steve, I said when the verdict came in, and the news media, Channel 7 in Detroit, I think it's WXYZ, they came out to the firm and they wanted to get a group shot of Jeff with all of his legal team. And so we had to go into the parking lot, right on 10 Mile in order to take this photograph. And the news anchor started interviewing him, and he talked about all the depositions that he had done down in California at Warner Brothers. And, I stood there like, so what was I doing down there? I mean, I didn't know, I missed my own anniversary because I was in California doing deps for Jenny Jones. So it did, had just a very diverse, that's the best way to describe it, Steve, a diverse career. And while I was instructed to try the criminal Benny Blades case in Wayne Circuit Court for a child support case, I think that was one of the few cases that Mike Cox actually tried. And I had keyed up another staff to try that case, and he said, no, you're going to try it. And so, of course, it was high profile, and I went down there and I did my job. But I recalled in doing that trial what I didn't like so much about criminal cases and criminal trials. So it was very fortuitous. And I just think a blessing that I was asked, when I joined the bench, I was asked to take on a civil docket. And it is really home for me. I feel very comfortable. If certainly now with the backlog that we have in criminal, if that gets tossed our way, we're going to do whatever we need to do out in Mason and take care of our citizens. But having the civil docket really is a very comfortable place for me. And I don't think there's any question that my career really prepared me for the cases that I see now. It's just amazing, and it can only be a blessing. And that's the only way I can describe it.
Well, that's an amazing overview of a very diverse background. And thanks for sharing all that. I mean, I can't believe how many high profile cases. I think you even told me that you were in Feiger's office when Jack Kevorkian was walking through the halls.
Oh yeah, he would just come in, and they're down in our basement is where we would eat lunch. And this was before the huge expansion down 10 Mile Road. I actually was in that very first building that's got where the flag is and the real big lions. I was in that very first building to the left, and or to the right rather. And actually that was the first time I met Miss Granholm. And she was Jeff had not, obviously he had not announced he was running for governor, but at that time, Miss Granholm was in our office for some reason to speak with him, obviously. And he was giving her a tour of his expansion and how it was gonna go down 10 Mile. And, he's got the flag that says, don't tread on me. And we were the fighters. And so she came to he was conducting the tour, and our offices were just so well appointed. And Jeff's wife, Keeney, she actually at that time, she was on the board for the Detroit Institute of Arts. And we had just amazing artwork on our walls, and you were not able to put anything on your wall unless she said it was okay, just so that it maintained this certain, just a certain environment. But I loved working there. Again, learned just things that, when you learn from really talented lawyers, and I have to say that I did, whether it was at auto owners or at the AG's office, what they taught me about the practice of law, those are the things that I think I really do bring to the bench. Being thoughtful, making sure that you read. There's no substitute for reading the pleadings that are in front of you, reading the case law, making sure you understand it, talking to other people. Right now, I'm telling you, I have many, many judges on speed dial. Whether I was, even when we were on the bench, I would take a recess sometimes, and I'd go back and I would just call another jurist who I hope had the similar issue come in front of them and give me guidance. And Judge Garcia has been very, I think, very open with me and very. I don't want to say too generous, but because I know he's just so busy, but I think he's been very generous with his time for me and just helping me. And he just told me, he said, it's going to take 5 years. Now, of course, me being who I am, that didn't mean anything when I first got on the bench. I thought, I'll get this. It's another job. What do you want? No, it takes a while. And you really do, you learn to appreciate the cases that are in front of you in a different way from being an advocate. And it's just so important that you pay attention to everything that's brought in front of you. And it's difficult. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that, all of the experiences that I have don't create certain biases in you, and you have to fight those. You really do. The conservative side of me has to fight the more liberal side of me and just try to stay right there in the middle and follow the law. And so I'm learning that every day. And you all teach that to me. Every time there's a brief that's in front of me and I read it, and I tell you, sometimes they're just amazing, some of the writing that I see. And I'm glad to see it. It really takes away from those times when it's not so good. No, everyone tries to do a really good job, and this is a good experience. It's a very good experience for me, and I feel so grateful.
So, what year did you move up to Ingham County?
Oh boy. What, MSU? Well, now you're gonna make me tell my age. I don't want to tell.
Well, no. I mean, like, because I guess what I'm getting at. No. I mean it more so about like you learned this legal community at the.
Now, my husband. I met him at MSU. He spent 38 years in the military, and he's retired now. And for those of you who know James, he's a wonderful guy. Hi there, Jim. And he's enjoying retirement, and we're sunsetting. I'll say it like that. But I've been in Ingham County. I can say a good, oh my goodness, 30 years.
Wow.
At least 25, 30 years here in the community.
Have you met a whole new range of people since being on the bench? Because I mean, you really had a different kind of world that you're in at the AG's office, right?
Yeah, I don't, because I'm actually seeing a lot of the attorneys that I worked with or that I knew of when I was, during my career. But in terms of the judges, I am. I think it's the Michigan Judges Association is really a great group of folks, and I joined that early on the advice of one of my colleagues on the bench, and it really was a good thing for me to do because I was just such a worker bee. I'm just going to tell you, it didn't surprise me that people were like, "Who is she?" Because I was typically in the background just working. And even if I had a title, and I've had a number of them, as Gary knows, I mean, titles come with these various jobs, but I was still always a worker bee. I think I felt more comfortable just being in the background, but just making sure that all the T's are crossed, all the I's are dotted, making sure that, whoever I'm working for, that we were doing our very best work. And that's been, if I had to sum me up, that's how I would do it. It's just a worker bee. While I'm enjoying all of the, some of the accolades, and last year I was awarded the Stella Award. I was just in tears because my career has been about I just tried to do a good job at whatever I was asked to do. And I don't, when you fall short sometimes, then you just get up and you go on to the next thing. And for me, the next thing was always there. And I don't know, I don't have an explanation for it other than for some reason I was recognized, and I got phone calls. I mean, that's how I worked for Mr. Snyder. I got a phone call to come over and see him, but I never met him before. And we had a wonderful conversation, and he asked me about helping to do some things that he thought I might be good at helping with, and I agreed, and my husband agreed, and so I decided to do it. And we again just did some good work. One of the things, and I'm not going to stop after this and not ramble on, but when I worked for Mike Cox, one of the most memorable experiences that I had in that office was when we did the mortgage foreclosure forums. And I remember the last day, it was 3 days in Detroit, I believe. I don't know if that's right, Gary. It was 2 or 3 days in Detroit. But anyway, on the last day that we were in Detroit, Mr. Cox actually came through because we had that Cobo Center where I mean, the whole thing. And the city of Detroit was helpful. We had DPD, we had free parking for folks. There were thousands of people who came down to Cobo to try to get their mortgages refinanced. And Mr. Cox made it clear that if the servicers were coming to play gotcha schemes, that they were, because a lot of folks didn't want to lose their house, so they weren't opening their mail, they weren't answering the phones. And these were the top servicers in the country. Our team had contacted and got them to agree to come to Michigan. And those servicers were told that if they did gotcha, they weren't invited. He was unequivocal about that. There were, I mean, I can't even remember the number anymore. I know it was in the Detroit newspaper. I don't know if it was like 13, 18,000 mortgages that were saved though in those few days. And we had people who, politically, I don't know what they were, but they said, if Mike Cox ran for dog catcher, they would vote for him because they were able to stay in their homes. They were living in their cars with their children. And I had AAGs saying to me that, they just being able to be out with with the public, with the people, and actually helping them when they left out the door, they knew that their mortgage was back in place, and they had a mortgage they could afford to pay now. And it just was so rewarding. And again, I recall that, and the team, some of the photographs I look back on now, and that was just such a tremendous part of my experience at the AG's office. We just did some good work, and I mean, I just got experiences like that really everywhere that I went. I really recall there being some just some event or some project that I worked on where I just felt that we just did some great things for people.
That's awesome. It's certainly not just my opportunity to ask you questions. We have a lot of fellow members from our Bar Association, and if anybody would like to pipe up and ask Judge Stokes anything within reason, feel free to do so. We also have, it's been this great discussion so far about your background and perspective, but we also have this whole new transition that we're entering into. And any thoughts you want to share with us on what's going on there, please feel free to do so.
Well, let me tell you about what's happening in Mason. I think that I think we're close. I think next week we're going to have some IT folks out there doing some of the final upgrades so that we are able to hear each other with all of the restrictions that are still going to be in place when we open. Excuse me. I know that we won't be required to wear masks when we're in unless we're in public areas where there are a number of people. And my understanding, and I don't know if we're going to get some more detailed guidance on this or not, but my understanding is that there still will be the screening when you come into the courtroom. Do you know anything more about that, Jill? whether or not we're going to have screening, entering. I don't know if BMC is doing that or not.
We are, and especially for jury, if we're going to pick a jury, they'll be all screened coming in.
Okay. So, and so Mason, you know, we'll still have those precautions in place, because again, while we want to move forward with the business of the people, we want to do it safely. And I know that we are going to be having, you know, pretrial conferences to talk about where the clients, your clients are with respect to coming into the courtroom. We need to be careful about that. I think when you are able to see the kinds of precautions that we put in place, that will certainly ease any fears that individuals may have about coming into the courtroom. But you know, for me, I find it really hard to force someone to stay in our courtroom if they don't feel safe. And so while it'll be on a case-by-case basis, I think I'm thinking at this point that I'm just gonna lean more toward giving folks an option. I know we have to, for civil trials, I have to have 8 folks, or 6 at least, to go into that jury box. And so we're going to move through, hopefully not that as many people as some have anticipated, but I hope we can move through, I generally call 25 folks, and we can generally get 6 or 8 people out of that 25 with the current situation. I'm not sure what we're going to see once we start, but my hope is that we can start as soon as possible. I don't know if how much time is going to be given in Mason for, you know, to assist with VMC on the criminal cases. I am all open for that. We have to work together to try to make sure that we don't incarcerate folks, so that we, you know, folks have some closure with respect to those criminal cases. And so when I'm not on the bench, I'm going to be opening my court to anyone at BFC that wants to use the courtroom. And just assist in any way that I can. I know that, you know, our civil cases, we are, you know, I think tomorrow or Wednesday, I have all day, as I practically have status conferences, and we are trying to schedule some firm dates in these conferences. So hopefully everyone will have an opportunity to, you know, all of the cases will funnel through at some level. If they don't settle, and we'll be talking about firm dates. And we've been doing that probably since March. I've been cautious because I wasn't real sure when our court would open, so I didn't want to schedule too far out and then just start changing dates, because, you know, I know the routine. And if you've got a med-mal case and you've got those docs on retainer, you know, the bill starts churning at that point. And so you really can't be, you know, moving those dates a lot. So, you know, I'm going to be ready to open. I hope our first trial can go in August, and we will move from there. I think we do have a firm date and one trailing in August. And if they don't settle, those will probably be our first jury trials. I'm hoping that as soon as the upgrades are done in Mason, that we can start having hearings again. My position on hearings is, I think dispositive motions ought to be in front of the judge. I just think that matters. Any other motion, I think that merits Zoom, I'm open for it. I think it is important that we, as the legal system, is as flexible and that we work with technology. My preference would be, I mean, I think everybody wants to be in the courtroom and they want to argue in front of the bench, and that's certainly going to be available. But if the parties decide that it's something that they would like to do, and they want to, you know, that the Zoom works fine for all of them, and they prefer to have a certain hearing via Zoom, they can request that when they schedule the hearing, schedule the motion.
Do you anticipate the availability of Zoom hearings to survive essentially forever, for years to come? Or is that something that we're going to ultimately get back to everything in person?
I think it's a part of where we are. I mean, it's just the future of litigation, I think. I think we were going to get there anyway. We just got there sooner with the pandemic. And while I tell you, I mean, you know, my early days, I remember I remember having a Mark IV, and it had the big phone in the console. And so, you know, we've come a long way with technology. I remember what Nexus was we had, my husband and I had the ones with the walkie-talkie on it. I mean, it was one of the first cell phones that I remember. And we've just come a long way from that. So as technology grows, I think we have to grow with it. I think we still have to appreciate, though, the value of in-person types of hearing trials. I mean, I know that there are a lot of groups and states have done virtual trials and they think they're fine. I tend to be the other side of that one. I just think you need to be there. I think you need to see the jurors. They need to see you. There's a lot that you don't get virtual, and so I'm still an advocate of live jury trials. And I know that even some of my colleagues are going to try some virtual jury selection and then bring the jury in for the trial. So there are a lot of different ways to do this, but I tend to be more, I think, old school, I guess, on that, is that trials just need to be in person. And, you know, to the extent that we have, I know in civil cases, we've been doing, you know, video depositions for years, and we've been boring jurors with that for years. I mean, we just have, but that's the best way to do it. You just can't get these docs time, and you don't want to pay for it either. I mean, so if you can do a ASA, that's the way to go, and it saves time and money, and you know you've got that testimony when you need it. But we had, in 2019, I think I had 11 trials. And after each one, I think 2 were bench and 9 were juries. And after each jury trial, one of the questions that I asked was about, you know, the video testimony and what the jurors thought of it. And while they paid attention, and I really believe them, I don't think they were just saying that because they thought it was politically correct. You know, they said they lost. You know, there was a lot lost to them because sometimes they found themselves not paying attention, and that's honest. So, but they do serve a great purpose in civil litigation. And, you know, Jonathan, I think that it was a matter of time before we got here, and I'm going to embrace it. I think that if we embrace it, then we can make it the best that it can be. And that's what I'd like to see, that it's a useful part of what we're able to do in serving the public. So
great. I very much agree with your representation. So yeah, that's where we're at now.
You know, I'll quickly share
Judge,
the bridge
if I
version.
can ask.
Go ahead, Lindsay. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask, with your preference for in-person, which I also share, I'm wondering what have been, I guess, the types of situations that, besides jury trials, that you found most difficult to conduct over Zoom?
Believe this or not, it's when we're putting a settlement on the record. I mean, when I get a person who hesitates, I'm wondering is this really what you wanted to do, or did you feel coerced in some way? I had a situation where one party had, and it's someone in the room with them, and they were kind of telling them, "No, you shouldn't say that to the judge." And you could just hear and some of that was nervousness. But had they been standing in front of me, I think I tried to make them feel very comfortable, you know, and that this is a settlement that you've agreed, your lawyers have worked with you through it. And that, you know, at this point, I'm not going, I want to make sure it's in your best interest at this point. And they don't always understand that that's the only role that I'm serving. They almost feel like, oh God, if I say the wrong thing, then it's gonna, everything that we've worked to resolve this case is gonna just blow up in smoke. And so there's a little bit of nervousness there. And I think some of that nervousness would go away if they were there in person and they could see me and my demeanor, and I don't look like just this face that's on, a black robe on a screen, just kind of peering down at them, asking some questions. So sometimes that kind of body language just makes a difference. And I think that that's just one example that comes to mind. I'm trying to, I think anytime I have to take testimony, I'm always concerned. If it's a TRO or something like that, and I'm taking testimony, I always have some concern about whether or not the party is giving me their testimony, or if it's somehow being scripted or something by someone else. And so those are just some of the concerns that I have. I think the other issue that I see, and I've only seen it a couple times, and I mentioned it to the attorney, so it hasn't happened again, but the tendency to get a little bit too relaxed and forget that we're in an official court proceeding. I've had folks leaning back in chairs and and probably not dressed quite the way they would if they had to come to the building. And I think that matters. I think that if I dress like I'm going to work in my garden, that's how I feel. I'm just very relaxed, and I'm probably not thinking as sharply as I would if I were properly dressed and prepared to stand in front of a bench. So I haven't had an attorney. Well, yeah, I did, but it was minor. He was coming from someplace else if he had forgotten about the hearing, and so didn't have tie on, and just probably a little more casual than I like. And then some of the impro-per folks show up, and I did have a gentleman that was in his, what is the skinny t-shirt showing all the muscles and the tattoos. A little bit too much. And so I did ask him to go put on just a regular t-shirt, and then we would resume the hearing. So
Well, thank you, Judge. I appreciate that.
Do you have any words of advice, any pet peeves, any things you want to get off your chest, so to speak, to the fellow attorneys here? What can we do better?
I think that because sometimes when I get a brief and I think it if I think it fully explains the issue, then I'm not likely to hear a prepared presentation. So just be prepared for that. If you come to the hearing and I tell you I'm going to suspend any argument, I just want you to tell me what's not in these briefs, because I've read them. So just be prepared to give me, what your bottom line is, what you want and why you want it, why the law says that you're entitled to it. The other thing is, and I don't want to sound like I'm being picky, but I guess I am. If you have to write me 30 pages to tell me what the court rules say you're supposed to tell me in 20 pages, I'd appreciate getting a brief, or at least a notice at the beginning of that brief that asks permission to do that. I just think it helps me in terms of knowing I've got 30 pages ahead of me, and it's just respectful. You can't assume that I'm going to read anything after 20 pages. You shouldn't assume that. That's so much more time for me and my little small staff. And we have, many motions coming our way. And I mean, this isn't a complaint about the work, because it is what it is. Everyone is entitled to file whatever lawsuit they want, but just ask permission. That was one of the things I learned at the AG's office. And Gary Gordon would probably snap me up if I sent a brief over to the Court of Appeals and it had more than the number of pages in there and I didn't ask permission to file additional pages. We were always very respectful to the court. And that was one of the things that I admired all my colleagues there for. Very good work, thoughtful. We paid attention to the court rules, they matter. Even if you've been practicing for many, many years, or you just started, those rules are important and you should read them and you should govern yourselves by them. And one thing I can tell you that I've learned in the short time that I've been on the bench is that when you don't follow the rules, you have a lot more work to do. and you're not able to give it your best because there's just only so many hours in a day. And so it's important that we receive the 7 days. It's important that if you have to file that response within under the 4-day rule, that you bring that copy to the courthouse so that I've got it in my hand. Judges' copies I read, that's what we read. We have a system now where we scan all of the filings, but just because they're scanned does not mean that they are immediately available to us. And not that the scanned version isn't, I just don't know it's there. So we don't have a system that alerts us that something's been filed. And so until our entire system, electronic system, is up and running, I won't know that that's been filed until my clerk comes down and tells me that she'll actually bring me the scanned copy so that I can use that as my judge's copy to read it, so that I'm prepared for the hearing in 3 more days. So it's important to follow the court rules. It's important to provide us with a copy of the judge's copy, at least until we are fully electronic and we have some kind of a queuing system that would let me know that you filed something. Then since I know that you're going to be heard on Thursday, because those are my motion for summary, that's the day that I hear those typically. I'll hear them on other days as well. But if I know that that's going to be heard, that week, then I can look at that response and those pleadings right away. And, it's not uncommon for us to get a 20-page brief and then 150 attachments. So I try to look at them, and I try to read the depth testimony that you provide. So it's not for naught. I really do try to look at those. My staff does, and they're trying to do summaries for me. So if you get those to us in time, based on what the court rules provide, then that we will make sure we do our job and get those reviewed and be able to have, an appropriate conversation with you during your hearing. So other than that, I have to say, I mean, we've got a really, I think the 30th Circuit Court bench is a good bench. We just have attorneys who are, and this is not a political statement. I'm not a political person at all. They're just good lawyers all the way around. Very respectful for the most part. Like I said, I think with Zoom, there's been I've seen a little lax behavior, but for the most part, it's been very respectful. And those briefs, when they come in, I just say the majority of them are very well written and supported by the law. And we have our work cut out for us when we get those. So
I think Veronica has a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I was just I just passed the February bar. So I've gotten to go to like one of these as licensed and one of these as unlicensed. But my favorite, thank you. My favorite question to ask is what you wish you knew in your first year practicing.
I wish I knew the rules of evidence better. The very first hearing I had to do, I was simply told to protect the record. And the judge even laughed. I mean, I knew, I didn't care. It was get up and object, just protect the record. And I was not ashamed of opening my book. When I was asked, you know, I was Jones at that time, Miss Jones, what do you, that was, well, Your Honor, and I would find the rule and finally get it, you know, get it all worked out. But that was a, it's humorous now looking back, but I really wish that I had some of the tips and tricks that I got at the AG's office, because we had a, I don't know who gave it to us, but it was a one pager that had all of the rules of evidence and what some of the, you know, the standards, and it was just at a glance, just a wonderful tool to have. So I just wish I had paid that a little bit more attention. I always thought that the cases were the big deal, but it's those rules of evidence.
So just know all of the rules. That's just the, that's the takeaway from this evening. Just memorize every rule ever.
But you know, you got to understand practically how it works.
No, I was just joking.
Then that's where I was flubbing, and it was like, I just know. I guess that's not hearsay, is it? Well, but judges. But I worked through it, and it was one of those experiences where when you leave, it's like, okay, I know what I need to do, and I need to shore that up a little bit more. But yeah, but have fun with it. Really do. Many of your experiences will be so challenging, and I can say that from firsthand experience. Some of the opportunities that I've had in my career, they were just I would sit home sometimes, and it was, so why did I say I could do this, and let me figure this out. But the challenges really made me stretch. They absolutely did. I can think of numerous situations at the Attorney General's office where I was just, I just had to stretch in order to figure it out, and really worked with some fantastic people. Ask lots of questions, keep your curiosity, don't let it get tossed out. You need that curiosity. That's what helps you ask that next question. And the ones you know the answers to, obviously, but it helps you to ask that next question and to really enjoy the practice of law. It doesn't have to get mundane or boring, or I used to tell people that was my nerdy side. That was all into the books and what the law said. For a time period at the AG's office, I was in the federal section of the Department of Corrections. I love that. I had one case that I didn't like, and that was because I was constantly getting this litigant all the time, and some of the Eighth Amendment issues that were raised by him in his litigation were just like, well, you have more rights than I do. You're incarcerated. So, but anyway, I just learned so much going through some of those challenges. And one thing I appreciated about the federal bench was that every time I went to a hearing, I had a specific time, and I didn't have to do the cattle call. And I always had a judge that had read my brief, and we would have a conversation about the Constitution and what it meant, if it was fifth, even Judge Edmonds. I had that, I don't know if you remember, Gary, I had that class action when I had to transfer, and it was the prisoner's account. And she made me come back 3 times, but I finally got her to dismiss that lawsuit for our client. But I tell you, each time I had to go back, I just got better. And Gary will recall that I actually won on a motion for summary in front of Judge Giddings. And that when I saw him at Judge, what's his name? I can't think of his name. And when he retired from the probate court.
Economy?
Oh, But anyway, and Judge Giddings came to that retirement. But in any event, I asked him if he remembered, if he recalled that, and he said, "Oh, right, you think?" But I was so proud of myself.
Are there any other questions from people here? Welcome anybody. I'll tell a quick story that has to do with the pandemic in me and Judge Stokes' court. Some of you may have heard the story. This was on March 12th, the day before the March 13th date that everybody associates as like the official shutdown date. So I'm there in the morning for a motion to approve, and there's this relatively contentious long hearing going on between 3 or 4 attorneys. A couple of them were from out of town, and they go on for about 20 to 30 minutes. And I'm sitting there with my client, who's about 69 years old. She's the primary caretaker of her husband. And they get all done. And one of the attorneys says, "Well, one more thing, Your Honor. My wife was out in Seattle, and she just got home a few days ago, and she has fevers and chills, and she's been diagnosed with coronavirus. And I don't feel that good today. I think I have a fever. I don't feel that well, but I thought it was really important that I be here today. And I just wanted to disclose this to the court." And like there was 6 or 7 other people in the courtroom. Everyone was looking around. You could just tell like the whole vibe of the room changed. Like, man, this guy's just waltzed on in here with his wife having coronavirus. He doesn't feel good. Judge Stokes evacuated the courtroom. People were like out in the hall spraying down the courtroom. My client was like in tears because she thought she then had COVID. It was, and then the next day everything shut down. It was like that was like the last time I was actually in her court. So
well, it was really funny, Stephen, when we came back in though, after we had sanitized everything, and your client stood at the door.
I know. I questioned her about I know. I had to ask her about the
She said,
settlement.
"Is this okay?" I said, "It's fine. It's fine."
It was something.
She was not approaching that bench.
Yeah, the way the attorney talked about it was like this one like last disclosure. He was like this technical thing, like, "I'm just telling you," and it was like, "Now you've told us, and we all don't feel that good about it." So
no, we would have liked to have known that before we started, because we actually had a person who had called and said that they had been in Asia, and they didn't have COVID, but they know they had been in the country, and they were concerned about being contaminated, and if we had a policy. And at that time, of course, we didn't. And so I said, "Just tell them to reschedule." At this point, until we get some more guidance, I think it's a better idea that they not come to the courthouse. And then, like you said, Stephen, the next day that we shut down.
Yeah, the guy said it like as if he was trying to make like an appellate record of the matter or something like that. Just want to be clear.
Yeah. But and there were people who just went right to Diane and said, "I'm just rescheduling. Can I just call you?"
Right.
And they never came back in the courtroom. Right. Yeah, that was an interesting day.
So, here we are. I welcome any discussion from anyone else. Obviously, Judge Stokes has given us a lot of background about herself, perspective, what to expect in the months ahead here.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I might have had the honor of trying your first civil jury trial after you got sworn in the circuit court. Having said that, you did an excellent job, and it was amazing because it was enjoyable to try the case. Having said that, I lost the case, but no, I can see from the background of being in the middle of 10 kids and the different jobs that you worked at, you have a widespread experience there that serves you well on the bench. You were very nice to all the witnesses, and I was impressed.
Well, thank you, Mr. Nolan. And I know I probably call you Larry, but you have I'm so impressed by you. I've seen you over the years, and as you've given leadership to the bar, and Skinner versus Square D is still a case I see often. So
not something I want to go to my grave with, but I'm sure I will. It's probably the most defense cited case in Michigan, but sorry about that, Steve.
Wasn't not your fault, Larry. I know how these things go.
I tried.
I know.
But no,
we have plenty of failed attempts in ours. Yeah.
Starting is always a challenge, I think, with anything that you do. And as I said, I think that our bar and Ingham County, even the bench, I mean, so many people have reached out to me and assisted me, and with the thought in mind of just making sure I can be the best judge I can possibly be. And that's what I want to do. You know, if the Court of Appeals is there, if they don't think I got it right, then we'll get it right and we'll move on. But I have been enjoying this journey so far and all the things I've learned. And I have so many people. I mean, I could go on for another lifetime, probably just thanking all the people who poured into me, something that's been so valuable. Even temperament, everything, you know, just how not to go ballistic over things and stop. And I got an acronym from a Livingston County judge, and it's STOP. And it's stop, take a breath, observe, and then proceed. And and I have that on my desk, and I look down at it from time to time, because sometimes there are questions or there are issues that come your way, and you want to be thoughtful about it. You don't want to feel pressured into saying the wrong thing or doing the wrong thing. You always have time to do it right. And I learned that a long time ago, and probably from Mr. Gordon there. I mean, he was such a good teacher, and I'm not saying that just because he's here. I know I've mentioned it many, many times. But in terms of being a litigator, I mean, he knew we did hours. I'd be down in, some part of Southwestern Michigan doing depths, and I'd come back to the office, and Gary's car was there, Denise's car was there. Everybody was still working, and I'd come back and do my notes for my dep, and then prepare for the next day. And he would tell me, "Don't stay so late. Get out of here." But everyone was concerned about getting the job done, and those kinds of lessons you just carry with you through your entire career. I think you learn the value of working hard, and it just pays off in the long run. I think that if you work hard, I'm an absolute believer, and I got that from my dad. My dad was, he was an iron pourer, and that's how he raised his family. Before we came to Michigan, my family's from South Carolina, and people still say I have some of that. My French teacher told me my run-ons at the end of my words is from the South. So I told her, I don't know what you want. I'm doing the best I can. But he just taught us the value of hard work. He was a mechanic, and then when he came to Michigan, he found a job in a foundry, and he worked there as an iron pourer for many, many years, and just taught us the value of how you treat people. He said, "It'll take you a lot further than your money." And he only had a 3rd grade education. My mom only went to the 6th grade. But they taught us family values that all of us still live with today. I said, if they had an education, I can only imagine what my parents would have been able to do. But they were in their own right very successful, and I'm just proud. I feel very fortunate to have had them for my parents.
Well, I think I could say this on behalf of the entire Bar Association, not to be so presumptuous, but I remember when your seat was open and everyone was wondering who was going to be the appointed judge. And I think that here in Ingham County, we really like to think of our bench as being a thoughtful bench, that there's no predetermined winner. It's those who work hard enough to present the best case to get the best outcome. And I think everyone was really concerned, wondering who was going to be that judge. And I think everybody, you know, from what I hear, believes that you totally fit that mold. And we just are really happy that you're here with us, and you're on our county bench here. So
Thank you. Thank you very much. Anything else? Good to see you, Jim, and Lauren, good to see you, and Jonathan, and Gary, as always.
Thank you, Judge.
yeah, well, if anyone else wants to chat, we can keep it going. If not, we're past our end time of 6:30. And again, we thank you all for coming out, and those who came to a few of these events, or maybe even all of them, thank you. And hopefully we're all going to see each other in the flesh soon.
With Stephen, I just want to say one thing about these forums, because I've watched several of them, because I wanted, you know, just to, because there's some things about my own, my colleagues I didn't know, and it was really interesting to listen and to support them. And I think this was just all the way around for the bench and the bar. Great idea. I don't know whose idea it was, but Lauren, the whole team, just thankful for this, especially during COVID. The creativity of so many people to keep everybody connected has just been amazing. And I hope we just continue that as we go forward with all kinds of creative ideas and ways of doing things. This was a great experience, great idea. So thank you, and it's my pleasure.
We appreciate that feedback, and I just will do a plug for the Bar Association. The motivation behind the idea was just to make sure that our Bar Association was giving stuff to our members when we couldn't do what we normally do, and for people to realize that this Bar Association is an important organization to be a part of and to support it as much as we can. So to the extent we get any new members out of it, that's great, and hopefully all those who are members can continue to spread the word that Ingham County Bar Association is alive and well, and we all need to stick together. So thank you.
Thanks, Stephen.